little bit of an update, right, Molly?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you guys know this, but we got a little bit of a global pandemic going on. So there's been lots of planning around that. Lots of contingency plans. We have seasonal staff kind of rolling in starting next week. So just making sure that we can keep everybody safe when they're working, as well as continue to get some of the jobs done that we need to get done. So lots of planning around that. I think Catherine and Will and Joe have got everything pretty much lined up. It's just now a matter of pulling it all together when people show up. So there's that. We found some time to make some benches for the Hamlet of Rolling Hills. Not that they're going to have baseball right away, but they had asked for some benches at their ball diamonds, and we had a little bit of extra lumber, and we bought some lumber, and we made that for them. Howard is currently putting the hawk nest together, so hopefully we'll be installing them right away. Bow City, if anybody's been to Bow City Campground, they did a bunch of tree work, and they had asked that Mark and Terry and their crew go out and do some chipping. Turned out the pile was quite a bit bigger than the chipper would have probably been able to handle in a couple days. So we're going to go and load it up with the tractor in the back of a truck and haul her to the dump. So that's good. It's nice to be able to help out in the communities. We've been selling a fair amount of strychnine. If there's any benefit to having a long spring, it's a long gopher control season. So happy that guys are still rolling in to do that. And some of the guys that we were hoping were going to come in now that strychnine's on its way out. Some of the guys that really needed to get a handle on some of their populations, those are the guys that are coming in. And that's, I think, a benefit to all their neighbors as well as themselves. So happy to see that. Lots of drill rentals now. Sorry, my beeper thing. Lots of drill rentals coming in. Guys are antsy for spring, I think, like everybody else. And then for myself, lots of grant applications. So we're currently doing our 5-year grant application for the ASB. So that's due on the 24th of April, I believe. It's almost done, I would think, anyways, just kind of some final improvements. And then we actually submitted 2 CAP grants. So the Canadian Agricultural Partnership, one that would encompass our Ag Pest Act survey, so Fusarium, clubroot, and actually an additional one on Fusarium on corn. So we put in for one of those, so that would be for the next 3 seasons. And then we put one in for our Bow River project, as well as we included some work on the EID canals and their reservoirs to make sure they're not getting any weeds from the river. So a few of these projects we already do. So it's just hoping that we can make up for some of that lost money revenue from the Ag Service Board grant. And then once we get all those grants done, we actually submitted the CAP grants, but once we get the 5-year program done for ASB, then we have to report on our last 3 years, and that one's due in May. So easy enough to get all those timelines dealt with. And then we, as you guys know, we host the AAAF Weed School. We have done for a number of years, typically beginning of June. We're probably not going to be able to get 100 people in the same room to do that. So we're trying to line up our speakers and get them to do it some sort of like this kind of meeting for everybody to watch. So that would be new for ag people, I think, for our ag people anyways. We're not always so good at the techie stuff, but I think we're excited to see how it goes. And I think that's most of what we've been up to.
Thanks, Todd. Questions, Anne-Marie? Lionel?
Todd, you have some summer students hired already. And I was just wondering if you maybe have projects that were not finished or projects that you can think of that could have you hire a few extra summer students. There's lots of students that don't have jobs, and I just thought, maybe that's something we could do.
Yeah, it's a good question. We kind of batted this around a little bit in the past too. We typically hire the amount of people we need to accomplish the jobs on our list. So I think that's kind of where we sit right now. I don't know of any big projects that would, like we hire kids for 20 weeks, or not kids, but seasonal employees for 20 weeks. That's pretty big projects to fill that time. So the only thing I would caution, just to bring people in for a couple weeks at a time, there's a lot of training and setup to get them going before they do just a few weeks of labor. That's, I don't know, that sounds kind of selfish, but.
No, I think I know what you're trying to say. I was more thinking, for the full 20 weeks, if you had some things that needed to be done, like picking branches at Emerson. I'm just throwing out an example, or, something that you have not done because you only have 3 or 4 students that you need for the regular jobs. But it sounds like you thought about it, so that's good.
Well, it's a start, I guess. I don't know if we finalized that conversation, but we definitely had some of it anyway.
Somebody else. There was someone else. Lionel, yes.
Hi, Todd. So summer students, there was a federal program to cover the wages for summer students. Do we qualify for that?
That would be the STEP funding, I believe is what you're talking about, Lionel.
I'm not certain what it was called, but he just announced it last week or beginning of this week.
Oh,
Yes, because there were a lot of students that were looking for employment, and of course, quite a few businesses are shut down. So I wonder if we qualify for that.
okay. I don't know that I knew about the one that was just released, but we've done STEP funding many moons ago, and there used to be another one called Canada Summer Jobs, but I don't believe that we ever qualified for that one to actually collect any money from it. But maybe I'll work with Matt and Natalie to see if there's some way to at least find it and see if we qualify.
It was specifically for students.
Okay.
Other questions? All right, seeing none, we will move on to our requests for appointing weed and pest inspectors. Item 921 for a start.
Yeah, and I think this one is something that we do every year. It's more of a formality. We hire these kids to do the weed inspecting, or I shouldn't say kids, but we hire these students to do weed inspecting and our pest surveys, and this is gives them access to places where so they don't get too many questions. They can drive down roads, they can go on oil field roads, and if anybody was to ask what they were doing, they have the ability to be there and do their jobs.
All right, Brian.
So with that, how is this going to look like this year when it comes to, because a lot of times these individuals, employees, they work together. So is that going to change, or how do you encompass that within your new directives?
Well, I can tell you what our plan is, or at least what we're proposing to do. We're going to run compressed work weeks, so 4 10-hour days. We're going to have them, the vegetation management technicians, so the weed inspectors, we intend to have them working in teams, so in pairs. So 2 of them will come in from Monday to Thursday. 2 of them will come in from Tuesday to Friday. Just gives us somebody around all the time. They'll work together. We've been doing most of the same jobs for quite a while, so we know which equipment is best suited for which jobs. So what we've done is we've lined up the weeks, the jobs for each unit, and then we're going to give those. This is really hard to explain without reading it all, but 2 people are going to get a set amount of places to go and do their work, and 2 people are going to get another set. So they shouldn't have to come together. The idea is to have all of their week lined up before they even get here, or before they even leave on the Friday, or before they leave on the Thursday for the next week. So most of their supervision is going to be on the phone or social distancing when they get here, but we're going to try to keep them apart as much as possible. We've decided that when they do have to drive together, all of our ag services trucks are crew trucks. So the driver in the front, obviously, and the passenger, the second person, would be in the back on the opposite side. Try and keep that distancing. And then when we have to switch vehicles or use a different vehicle, we're just ironing out the checklist that we're going to put in the truck now with Mark and his team, so we can use the same stuff. but just outlining what was disinfected, what was washed, when it was washed, and by who, so that if we do have to jump into a truck, we know that it's been cleaned and disinfected from the last people, just to take away some of that chances. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, Todd, it does make sense. Thanks for that. I know I'm going to get asked questions about it, so I'm just curious. I wanted to have people prepared.
Yeah, like I think where we kind of talked about it was when we're bringing these people in, we still have the same jobs as we did before. We just have to accomplish them maybe a little bit differently. The weeds don't care about COVID-19. We know that.
So Todd, I'm curious, just from a farm agricultural perspective, when you talk about disinfecting trucks, have you received directives from Alberta Health or somebody as to exactly how to do that, or are you just coming up?
Kind of make stuff up, Mom.
Yeah.
We know, and Mark has asked too. We asked Daryl on the EOC meetings, you know, how many people can be or should be in a truck, and he kind of just said that to make sure you're, you know, if you have to cough into your elbow, all the rest of it, try to stay away as much as possible. But there is a great list of all the things that do take care of the COVID virus on surfaces. So the different bleach solutions, different Lysol wipes, those kinds of things, Clorox wipes. So our intention is to use those on the commonly touched areas. So radios, steering wheels, all those kinds of things, turn signals, any place where you should or might touch after you've touched your face, that kind of stuff.
So nothing extraordinary, just pretty, yeah,
No, nothing.
ordinary what we're doing with everything.
Yeah, kind of nothing earth shattering, just an extra step in all the processes.
Right. All right. Other questions for Todd? Let's get a motion for the appointment for the first batch for the Weed Control Act. Who would like to move that one? Wayne will move it. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And Tracy will move the next one for the Ag Pest Act. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Anything else, Todd?
No, nothing. Just hope everybody stays safe out there.
Yeah, well, you also and your family.
Yeah.
Me
Yeah.
too. Thanks.
I'm kind of going crazy at home now. It's like as soon as I get home, Chloe wants to talk, Jackson wants to play, and Carla wants nothing to do with me. So it's great. Everybody's just so happy. I hope she's not watching, actually.
I'm sure she is. Is that different than usual, Todd?
No, actually, yeah, you're right. It's kind of more of the same, isn't it?
Oh, we're all hoping for the nice sunny weather so we can broaden our spaces apart some days.
Yeah, exactly.
All good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If it's okay, I might listen in for a while just in case Mark says something really good.
Todd, did you have anything on the parks
Oh,
closure?
yeah. I guess we probably should talk about that while I'm here. Hey?
Well, I'm not acting smart. I have a big list for Mariana, and if I don't look at it, I screw up immediately.
All right, so Alberta Parks has shut down their parks for vehicle traffic and foot traffic, right, Mark? If I remember that right.
Vehicle traffic for those persons that have to drive there. For anybody that basically has access to walk to, bike to, skateboard to, you're still welcome, but they do not want any motor vehicles.
Yes, that sounds right. And the EID sent out their kind of news release that they were shutting down their 2020 camping lease sites, and they would kind of keep closed until Alberta Health told them they could stay open again, is their plan. So I guess we kind of have to make some sort of decision on Emerson. We obviously had planned to open up the Wednesday before the long weekend, before all of this kind of took over. So I guess if it's okay with council to have that discussion now, should we kind of follow suit and maybe delay our opening of Emerson Bridge until we hear otherwise?
I'd say so. Anybody else? Wayne agrees.
I agree.
I agree
Other
too.
people, yeah, other people are nodding their heads. I think we have to just
Agree.
hope.
Yeah, the EID asked what we were going to do, and I said with everybody else closed that we were going to have the greatest season ever. So I obviously was joking, but
And our park is set up that we could do that.
absolutely. But no, okay, that's what we'll do with it. We'll draft a kind of a news release to push out on social media that Emerson will remain closed for camping traffic till I guess
Further notice.
and again. It does, I know Will's been waiting to contact Christina because we did have her kind of lined up to come back. But just with the lesser maintenance at Emerson and in other areas, we're going to have a fair amount of maybe extra time. So we're not sure what we would have Christina do for the first while. So we're going to for sure postpone her start date for a while. And then I guess hopefully she can come in still when we get to open. Sorry, I'm looking at you guys over here and my camera's over here.
It's a good thought, Todd, that it'll just be a matter of time and then we'll open. Brian.
With that said, Todd, is there an opportunity to do some upgrades or some expansion on some of the things we've talked about in the park in Emerson, as far as, you know, adding some more powered sites, or is that sort of crazy thinking?
No, it's not crazy at all. It's just a matter of having the money. We just haven't been putting the different upgrades into the budget for a while. We kind of talked at one time that maybe our investment in the park had been done for a bit. So, you know, if there's projects that we want to do, we could certainly get some money and come back for some adjustments if that would be of interest.
Well, I guess my thinking is more around that whenever the park does open again, and I'm optimistic. Maybe I'm overly optimistic that it'll be in July or sometime in June. I don't know, but that we could, if we had that time and like you said, some more bodies around because we're not doing other stuff, that we could maybe put them to use putting some more of those improvements in and then be more geared to be better geared up for a higher traffic once that happens. So I don't know. It's just a question. I don't know. I'm not a big camper. I don't know much about it, but I know we've talked about it in the past.
Yeah, and I guess we are going to have a discussion further on in the agenda regarding economic stimulus. And I'm assuming that staff might have thrown around some talk on this, or maybe they haven't until they talk to us, but I guess we'll be furthering the discussion possibly. Brian, is that what you're sort of getting at? Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
From my perspective, we definitely have thrown a lot of pie in the sky ideas around and bashed them out, maybe just me and Mark internally a little bit, but which, you know, I guess it's always good to have the conversation. Whatever you guys decide is what we'll do. But.
Thanks, Todd. And yes, feel welcome to watch us stumble through here.
Okay, well, maybe I'll turn my camera off just in case I pick my nose or something.
Don't be touching your face. Okay, Roberta, is Roberta around? That's who I have on my informal agenda for about this time. She is there. So I'm just, Roberta, would this be, I think this must be like a part of the post agenda items, perhaps COVID-19 update and live streaming MPC and council meetings, perhaps. You can talk about whatever you want, and if it hits this, I'll strike it off my agenda list.
Yeah, that's just what I was coming to council with. is, as you probably, I'm sure, are all aware, that legislation has changed in the ways in which you can have your council meetings. So live streaming is now available. And I just wanted to hear from council if that's something they're interested in doing. I know that we haven't done it. We do have the ability to do it, but with a different system than the one you're currently using. We know that up until now, there has not been requests. Well, I shouldn't say that. Until recently, there has not been requests to live view, but we have remote requests now for remote viewing. So that has come up by the public. They would like to be able to view the council meetings remotely. And so I just wanted to understand how council felt about it and if that's something you'd like us to move towards.
So Roberta, just to clarify, right now, what we're doing will be posted later so people can watch, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
So they want it to be,
They want it live so that they don't have to physically come to the building if they had questions. They wanted to be able to watch it online and be able to ask council questions if they had some.
that's interesting. Anne-Marie.
Roberta, when you say the public, how many people are we talking?
I'm aware of 2 requests. There may be more. Lane, I don't know if you have anything to comment, but I know 2.
No, there aren't any others that I'm aware of, but we certainly anticipate that there is going to be more people sitting at home, need entertainment, and this could be as good as it gets for a while.
Man, they need to buy Netflix or something. Okay, council. So live streaming, I get all these mixed up. So the difference between what we're doing is simply, in the past, they could come in and rather than live stream, we'd be there live. Right now, the only way they could be part of our meeting is to come to the county office. Okay, so they would, so if they could just do this from home, it would be live to ask questions. Yeah. I'm just trying to figure it out. Wayne, Anne-Marie.
If we did live stream, how would we control the people who are the audience, so to speak? Because can they just interfere, like break into the meeting and talk anytime they want?
No,
You can't do that, right?
So how it works, we would propose using LifeSize. So LifeSize is a system that we bought with the video conferencing system in the council chambers. And what it allows us to do is we can live stream the meeting. So we create what's called a URL and we can put it on our website and people can just go there and click on it and it would open a web browser and they could watch the meeting. What it would then allow them to do is they can ask questions. The questions would go to what's called the moderator. The moderator can review the questions and either accept or reject the questions. So if they were inappropriate questions, they could be rejected. If they are valid questions, they'd be accepted. Then they could be read out to council and council could then reply live to those questions. We can also lock the meeting. When we lock the meeting, then you can control the streaming, you can stop the streaming, you can then lock the meeting so that only those in the meeting can be in the meeting. Anyone, if they try to come into the meeting, they receive a notice saying that the meeting has been locked, and then the administrator will open it when they want to open it again.
So in camera, for example, would be totally in control through technology.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, Anne-Marie and Lionel and Ellen.
Can we do it in a similar format that we have now where you have a question period only? So at the beginning of the meeting, we have question period, and then we're done with interruptions from public.
Absolutely. I think you would just state that at the beginning. It might be a good idea just to say we welcome any public. We will be taking questions during this period of the meeting. Any questions after that will not be, part of the meeting. We could then forward them to council afterwards if we wanted to do that, so you could have an opportunity to respond to them. But yes, so we can identify the time frames in which questions will be answered. I just think that I would recommend, I don't know how else we could communicate it other than where the link is on our website. We would outline that questions would only be received from council according to the agenda and publish the agenda there.
Thank you. That's good knowledge. Lionel and Ellen?
So the moderator, that's somebody separate, presume, and not our, because she's got enough on her plate. Extra stuff going on. So you would need a separate moderator, I presume.
Yeah.
That was her feedback too, Lionel. She had enough. So even now we have a moderator. So for this meeting right here, Lane is our moderator. So Ariana takes the minutes and Lane kind of moderates the meeting. He just has less to do than he would probably do if we live stream.
Ellen?
Yes, this one is for staff. I noticed that under post-agenda items, there's also a potential office closure. Now, when I read the MGA, and perhaps they put a different thing out, but I understand that the public, if they don't have the right to watch it in the office, that they have to be able to watch the whole thing live. That was my understanding, but please, staff, tell me if this is true. Not just in a question period, but that they actually that they can watch the whole thing live.
Not sure if Kevin or Lane want to talk to that, but my understanding is the same as that, Ellen, when I read the legislation, is that if they cannot physically come here to attend, then we need to facilitate the ability for them to watch it live. So I guess if council decides, sorry, I'm gonna let Kevin go. Okay, I'll wait for you. I'll kill some time.
Roberta, you got to be nicer to Kevin. Make his machinery work for him.
Yeah, it doesn't bode well for me, does it? Hang on. Kevin, did you want to step in here? Yeah.
Yeah, something's happened different for this meeting because it worked good last meeting, but I tried to do it in the other room and it's still echoing. So yeah, we would have to have a meeting where the public is able to attend, and if we close the office.
Oh. You left the other mic on.
Roberto will shut it off for me. Yeah, so we have to have a spot where the public can view the meetings. And so if we close the office, we would have the option to keep council chambers open. But of course, closing the office, what we were thinking about there is what happens when calcium payments are coming and what happens when tax payments are coming. It's a big difference from 2 or 3 or 4 people a day to 100, 200, what might come in. So that was our thinking on that. In terms of streaming live, I think, that makes sense, but what's live is live. So it's a different approach. And certainly people from outside of the community can watch it, and there's nothing the matter with that. I would strongly encourage council not to allow people to join into the meetings unless it's a public hearing or some special parameters that if there are questions, they probably should be emailed or sent before the agenda is made up and handled that way. I've got a real fear about this digital video conferencing. I know Zoom is in the middle of a lawsuit with data that has been not encrypted and the hackers have got into. So these meetings with us, that's different because we view that as secure. But as soon as we open up and a meeting invite gets sent out, then it can be, anybody can take it. So if we are going to live stream, that's good. I don't have a problem with that, but I wouldn't go much past that if it was me.
So how does it work if you would to be having public hearing and we would have questions for the applicant? Because that has happened, and it's realistic where we need some clarification on perhaps something that's been brought forward. It happens during public meeting. How do you vision that?
Well, I think the safest way to deal with that is have them phone in, and that way they're through the cell lines and it's not through a data transfer between computers and routers and all of that. So I'm not a technical guru, but I know our systems are secure, or they say they're secure, but I always worry about the internet and the transfer of data from computer to computer.
Other questions? So this system that we have today, the go-to, like already, I think that in having just a second meeting, it works really well. And I'm not sure how other people feel, but if we had a time in a regular meeting, as Anne Marie outlined in the, but we don't know yet if the office is open. So there's just a couple of people saying they won't come into the office, but they would like to see the meetings, is what I'm hearing. Is that accurate, Roberta?
Yes, there was someone who had an interest in some of the things discussed today, and they wanted to be able to, attend the meeting without coming into the office. But then they changed their mind, so.
Because, I mean, if our office is open, this would be no different to me than if COVID-19 wasn't on and they wanted us to live stream instead of coming into our office because it's maybe more convenient, or I'm not sure, but other ideas on this? Wayne?
So if we went live streaming, would it be a different cost involved, or is that a moot point?
No, there'd be no change to cost. So right now, when this all came about and we wanted to do remote meetings, we had 3 options that we already own. So we had GoToMeeting. It's a subscription that we've had for a number of years. We only have 1 administrative license. There's 25 people that can attend a meeting. There is no ability to live stream. We also had, with our Office 365 subscription, what's called Teams, but Teams is limited and we would have to buy more licensing to do live streaming. And our third option, which we purchased at the time as we purchased the video conferencing equipment for the council chambers, actually allows for live streaming. It allows live streaming up to 10,000 people, and it has 250 licenses. So we went with GoToMeeting initially because we didn't know, we hadn't rolled out life size. So we didn't know how difficult it would be, how easy it would be. We had no experience with it, and there was a time crunch. GoToMeeting, there was also no desire or requirement for live streaming. We just had to get a remote meeting going. So we used GoToMeeting. If we were to go live streaming, we would have to move to life size. but there'd be no additional cost because it's already in our subscription.
Do you think it would work, Roberta, as well as this has? Like, is there any reason? I mean, I find this really works well. I think everyone can hear well. And I mean, there's a few kinks like with Kevin's setup today, but for the most part, it's I think pretty foolproof.
Yeah, I think it works well. I think as staff has actually started to use life size because we have people who are working from home. So we've learned to use it and I quite like it and it's quite easy. Some of you may have actually used it. Molly, I think you've used it when you attended EOC meetings. That's life size.
I just use my phone.
Yeah, and there's a link that you click and you go in to the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how the council meetings would run too. You would receive a link, you just click the link and you come into the meeting.
So does that also have a video part to it?
Yes, it does. Yes.
Oh, okay. I've never done the video part.
Okay.
Okay. Kelly and Tracy.
So where this changes is the opportunities for our ratepayers. It would be very similar to what we have right now, but the opportunities come to our ratepayers in that they could ask the questions during question period, and then follow along with the meeting if they chose to, and come and go as they chose to. I've been following City of Medicine Hat for a few years just to see how that as a viewer. There's many municipalities that are live streaming. So if you haven't checked it out, I encourage you to do it. We talked about it a couple years ago and I thought that's where we were heading a couple years ago. So to me, I say, let's do it. That's where I'm at.
And so just question, Kelly, on the live streaming that you've watched from Medicine Hat, is it how does the public interact?
Unless you're asking, like I don't interact, but anybody with internet can zoom in and listen, right?
So they're not allowing people remotely to ask questions and things like that, even in a question period?
Yeah, they do. There's a moderator like Roberta was talking about, and during question period, you can ask questions and the chair has the opportunity, say a relevant comment or question came in, the chair has the opportunity to include it in the meeting if they so choose to. But this is not about council. This is about the ratepayers. That's the difference.
Tracy, thank you.
Yeah, my comment was along those lines of the ratepayers. So using this system though, that we are using now, GoToMeetings, is it possible to, if we had a public hearing and the ratepayer wanted to be a part of it, could they not log into GoToMeetings at 11:30 or our time that we set out for public hearings, and then they could interact with us? And then same if we had someone that had questions, that we have our question period, whatever, say at 10 o'clock, would have to contact the county office, but again, get the link for the GoToMeeting for that day, be told that they could come on at that time for their questions, it would be answered. Would that work?
I think all of those, I guess the only thing I'd be worried about with that is the legislation, which means that if you attend, it has to be opportunity for every, the public in general. I would be concerned if we just sent links to certain people, but unless they arrange it ahead of time, and that might fit perfectly with that legislation. I guess you'd have to look at that to determine for sure. I think any of those things would work. That would work. Technically, that could work. We'd send a link to them. They'd come in, they could ask questions, they could be responded to. We do have a limit of 25 licenses, so we'd have to purchase more licenses. So my recommendation would be, if we wanted to go beyond the scope of what GoToMeeting could do, I would recommend us use something we already own rather than purchasing additional.
Right. Tracy, response, and then Anne-Marie.
Yeah, I guess I was more looking at it as the office was still open, that people had the opportunity to still come in, but if they chose not to, but their item was on the agenda, that they could then be a part of the meeting through this system.
Yeah, sorry, technically, yes. And that's all I need to answer. So technically, yes, you could do that. Yeah.
Anne-Marie?
Okay, it's 2 requests from the public and one already changed their mind. I like this system. We've done 2 meetings. It works well. The building, the physical building is open. There's lots of space in the audience to keep their distance. If it was 10 people, 15 people, it would be different. But to make all these changes for 2 people, I don't know if I'm ready to do that.
Wayne?
I disagree with you, Anne Marie. I think we should do this. We should, because we've always been touting that we are open and we want everybody to see what we're doing. And this is a perfect opportunity. Maybe there'll be more people who tune in. The government health, Alberta Health is saying, stay home. Do not come in. We're saying, if you want to see our meeting, we'll come into the office. Oh, we've got lots of space. We're still telling people not to stay home in this case. This way they can stay home. They can watch our meeting. We control. They can't interfere if we don't want them to. But I think this is a good idea. We are showing that we're open and above board on everything we do. They can come in and watch us. And we own the product. It's not going to cost us any more money. I think we should go with it.
I have no problem doing anything that works well. And if live streaming would work as well as this, I mean, we have nothing to hide, and I don't think anything would change a great deal. Our meetings are live streamed later, and we don't worry about what goes on when they, I mean, I don't know. I think this is more of a technical decision for our staff than for us personally. It's my feeling.
Everyone might feel more comfortable if we tried a test of it. We could create a meeting in life size, have it sent out to everybody, the link. You could try it. You could see how it works. Then you can measure it against what you know and what you've been using and make a decision from there, if you like.
I like that. Lionel?
Yeah, I like that also. I get a little scared, Roberta, when you say it's easy. It's easy to you is is a little more difficult for myself.
And me, Lionel.
Very well, so I don't want to stay too far away from things that are working.
Would you guys want to give that a shot in before our next council meeting, just to sort of do a little trial run? I see a thumbs up from a few people, just because this works extremely well, I'm feeling. And if live streaming is this easy, then why not? But if it's more complicated, because remember, the live streaming I'm thinking of us all sitting around in the council chambers together. So I'm not quite sure and Kelly, that's what you've been watching too, correct? So when you say
Yeah.
live streaming of us remotely, I'm not so sure it would be this smooth. But let's give it a shot, Roberta. It's a lot of work for you. I mean, we could just have a visit online next week or live stream somehow it doesn't have to be a formal sort of meeting even that you have to put work into, but just give it a shot. Sound good, Brian? Deputy Reeve?
Well, I think it is a good idea. And I guess I'm trying to be thinking a little bit about perhaps some of the residents in our community. So let's say you were under quarantine. I mean, I was under quarantine for 2 weeks and it fit because we had this go-to meeting because I'd been outside the country. But if you weren't able to come in, like you could actually be fined if you showed up in council chambers, even though all those precautions are in place. This would be an opportunity to accommodate that. And if you had a genuine interest, let's say as a developer or somebody else that had to have an interest or wanted to have input into council on a decision, whether a development permit or a subdivision or whatever, but you were prevented from doing that because of our technology, I think that would be a mistake. So if we have the ability, as Roberta says, I'm certainly willing to try it. I think it's a great idea, and do the dry run. And you know what? Maybe we get our spouses or somebody that we know to phone in and just see how somebody from outside works, or use some other avenue. All those extra people hanging around Ag Service Board that have nothing to do, like Todd said. So I'm just kidding, of course. But anyways, it would be nice to see how it works and having some interaction from outside audience as well.
Lionel?
Yeah, I think the test is a good idea. We have to be realistic that likely one of us is going to wind up with this darn virus before this is over, and maybe some staff people. So we have to have the ability to interact remotely whenever we need to, including our staff.
So Roberta, do you want to let us know, we're all home these days. This is the easiest time to arrange meetings that there's ever been in the history of the world, because you're supposed to be home, and there's no one that's going to say, I can't make it. Change your plan, fella.
Yeah.
Give us a time, maybe before this meeting ends, even if you want to check your schedule, and then we'll give her a shot.
Sounds good. And I think that's an excellent idea. If we can have some people who are the public and they can attend and ask questions, and everybody can get a feel for how that works. Yep. I'll make sure to send something out. Does anyone have a preference to mornings or afternoons?
Let's go for 10 o'clock, seeing as that's council time normally. Did you guys all get the little blurb that just showed up on your screen that says it was an erroneously identified case of COVID in our community or something? All right, that's not the subject, but so we'll leave it in your hands, Roberta, to pick a day for 10 o'clock.
But not on Monday.
Not on Monday.
Well, and you know, Molly, we are home and our schedules are not very busy, but I'm starting to get a few conference calls for other stuff too. And I happen to have one Monday at 10 for Newell Foundation, UB.
And I have Shortgrass Library on the following Wednesday, on next Wednesday. So yeah, we do have teleconference or video conference meetings booked on occasion.
Sorry,
I've
you
got one next
guys.
Friday.
I thought you're just all laying around under your sun lamps or something.
Well, I can send a meeting invite out and then we can work on a schedule from there. How's that?
Maybe try Tuesday.
Tuesday here.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. Okay. I'm just going to go back to the start of the agenda now, and I think it's like at the bottom of page 1, item 7.4, which is the beginning of the bylaws for irrigation, water, and things like that.
So these bylaws are part of the annual process that we go through. There's 3 of them that we require. Special taxes that are put in place, one for the hamlet of Rolling Hills, one for Scandia, and then the other one is a special tax bylaw that passes on the cost of the EID irrigation rates to the residential property owners. All 3 of them require 3 readings. They need to be done individually. It's just part of the annual process that we go through.
So the first one is for the Scandia Communal Raw Water Irrigation System then. Are there any questions about this? If not, we'll need the beginning of a whole pile of motions. We're going to have this one for first reading for Scandia. Clarence moves.
So move.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried for second reading. Hubie moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried for consent. Anne Marie moves. All in favor? Opposed? Was there anyone opposed? No? All right. Motion is carried. And finally, for third reading, Lionel moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. All right, the next one is for Rolling Hills for the first reading. Kelly moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Second reading. Lionel moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Consent for third reading. Tracy moves. All in favor? Is there anyone opposed? Motion is unanimously passed. And so for third reading, Brian moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. For the Eastern Irrigation District's special tax, first reading. Clarence moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. For second reading, Hubie moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. For third reading, consent for third reading, Ellen moves. All in favor? Opposed? Is there anyone opposed? That motion is unanimously passed. So for third reading, Lionel moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay. Those are done. I think we're on to the third page. Anybody or everybody speak up if I'm missing things, please. So are we now at item, did we approve the final budget? Did we do?
Yes. So
We did. I heard you, Ariana.
item 10.4 would be the Another one that we need to deal with is on economic stimulus.
Perfect.
So,
Go ahead.
okay. So council has already just during this meeting obviously dealt with the 2020 budget and the mill rate bylaw. We've had some conversation with council already about things that could be considered going forward that might provide some stimulus and employment opportunities for students. I guess what we're wanting to engage with council on at this point is a conversation about the bigger issue about whether or not we need to be taking a look at the county's role as one of the 3 levels of government and taking an active part in providing some economic stimulus given the current realities that we're facing both within the region, within the province, and within the nation. If consideration is going to be given to doing that, to expanding the county's role, I guess the first decision that needs to be made and direction that council needs to provide is that you feel that it's appropriate for the administration to come back with a plan that you would have an opportunity to review and consider and provide some further direction on. There are certainly, I think, some fairly good arguments that could be made about the benefit in the county taking an active role. Without a question, there is going to be a fairly significant hit that the local economy is taking, and the need for employment and dollars to be moving throughout the community is going to become quite apparent in the weeks ahead. So I guess we're just wanting to engage in a discussion with council about whether or not you want your administration team to be coming back with some ideas and some specific possible projects that should be considered as part of this expanded role, if that's in fact what council wants the administration to be doing. So that's just kind of an introduction to the discussion, and we'll see where it goes from here. We've got the department heads ready to participate and offer any comments or suggestions that you might be open to.
Thanks, Lane. Clarence.
You know, on this issue, I think I wouldn't, you know, our situation in the future is very, nobody knows what it is going to be. So I'd be very hesitant to put our financial position in jeopardy by doing something that we wouldn't normally do. However, I do believe that there will be stimulus packages, there will be dollars coming forth from higher levels of government to get things moving. And for that purpose, I think we should be ready. I have no idea what that might be, but I think we should think about that a little bit. What can we do in the county if there are stimulus packages coming forth so that our area also benefits from some of those things? And I think that was something we should be prepared for. To put our own balance sheet in jeopardy with the uncertain conditions on how the world is going to unfold, I don't think that's prudent in this time until we get a clearer picture on how it will be unfolding, because we can't help anybody if we're broke ourselves. So I think you have to be ready to remain strong. But if you have additional dollars from somewhere else, I think we should say, okay, this makes sense, we can do this. Now let's give it a try and see if we can make use of that to stimulate what's happening in our area. That's kind of where I'm at that.
So Clarence, safe enough to say that you are thinking that it would be good to wait and see what the feds and the province do to see what we might be also able to do along with them?
That's correct. I think you don't want to put yourself in a position where all of a sudden you become vulnerable. Especially when, even at Christmas time, none of us would have imagined what we're going through today. Even at the end of January, and even at the end of February. Nobody saw this. We couldn't imagine it. Still having trouble believing it. So I'm not sure how this is, everybody has, we try to remain positive. We're going to move out of this, how it's going to go. But you really don't know. And how many people are not going to be able to pay their taxes? How many, that type of thing. We did some stuff today, which I think was very good. These agenda items may again be on the table in October or November or December, because things haven't unfolded the way we thought they would. I think the future is uncertain, and until you get a better idea of how this all unfolds, and maybe it comes from watching other countries unfold. Maybe that's how you get that. But every day you learn a little more, a little bit better able to make a good decision. And I just don't want to put ourselves in jeopardy and hang ourselves out to dry if something unexpected comes forth. We can handle this right now the way it's happening right now. But if you're not in a position to help, then you're really in trouble. So I think we want to remain fairly strong financially if we can. But if there are dollars available, we should make some plans on how can we make use of those.
Wayne.
I agree with you, Clarence. We should got to be very cautious here, but I think we could have administration look into some projects, maybe line things up, get them ready. Not saying we'll go ahead with them, but when the government does come down with some stimulating packages, we'd be ready to go. We could look at this with fear, or we could look at this as a great opportunity. We get a lot of things that we would like to get done, and a possible way to do this in the future. I'm saying 6 months, maybe next year. But if we got ready to do them, so when the money did come, we're ready for it. A couple of the projects, we were looking at expanding our water project. Also, Mark, I'm sure you've got quite a few highways that are looking for a recap in the future. Can we bring them a few years ahead or a year ahead to get some people doing some paving work for us? There's opportunities here. We should be looking at them, and staff can look at things that they'd like to get done and get everything in place to do that. But again, I agree with Clarence there. We got to be very cautious.
Other ideas? Kelly and Lionel. Thanks, Wayne.
I hear what Clarence and Wayne are saying, and they're talking about the big dollar things. I don't want to lose sight of the smaller things, things that the low hanging fruit, if you will. We've all heard that term. Starting from the inside. I read an article the other day where the CAO appointed happiness officer. I'm not sure, or a glee officer or something. Did anybody else read that article? Okay. So
I think it was, yes, positive, I think, was the officer.
Positive, thank you.
Yeah.
So the idea is looking after from the inside out. So, I mean, these are low hanging fruit, but, and then reaching out to our ratepayers. How can we impact our ratepayers, or support our ratepayers in the interim? So, I agree with being ready and looking for those opportunities, but I also don't want to lose sight of the smaller opportunities or the internal needs, for sure.
Okay, Lionel.
So, listening to the comments of my fellow councillors, I agree wholeheartedly on all of them, but I think we want to be really careful we don't miss some valuable opportunities here in the future, in the near future. The quotes are going to come in very cheap. There's almost free money there now. I think we want to be, I think we'd be remiss to not take advantage of this opportunity right now.
Brian.
Thanks, Lionel. You were sort of along the same lines as me. Interest rates are almost at 0%, and especially if there's a stimulus package that's put forward by a different level of government that we can piggyback, I think that's the opportunity. I guess where I would like to focus is on the things that would build our community, that would be an investment in our community, that would be stretching into the long term. I wrote down two things. One was said already, and that's expanding the water project. That has been and continues to be an investment that is most of the infrastructure is there. We could expand that. We could roll out a program. And the other one is fiber, is the one that came off the top of my head. Our rural communities, we know in Canada that as a nation, rural Alberta, rural Canada is behind in the fiber. I think that if we put our heads together with the service provider, by that I mean the EID, there could be an opportunity that they see and we see to do something there too. So I'm not dismissing what you're saying, Clarence. I think you're absolutely right in that we gotta protect our bank book to a certain extent so that we have the flexibility and the leverage to do something down the road. But those things that if we are shovel ready, or we've had at least the initial conversation with some of these other levels of government, or even like I said, the EID as far as the fiber part of it, maybe there's the opportunity that we can leverage our investment so that our community is situated in such a way, and by that I mean our farming community is situated in such a way that they are have a huge advantage, or at least catch up to some of the other parts of our urban neighbors. So my fear with and maybe it's unjustified, is with any stimulus package that is rolled out, especially by the Federation, federal government and the FCM, is going to be structured towards the urbans. And so you'll see stuff like green lines, transportation, those type of things, which really aren't going to align with a rural type of initiative for investment. So what I would like to see is that we have some shovel ready, or at least get the conversation going. I think Wayne mentioned that as with some of our other partners, and to say, you know what, let's get something let's get something lined up as far as engineering or background work, so that if these projects come forward and we can make them work with other money, we can leverage our money, great. If not, if it still makes sense and we can borrow money for next to zero, I'm not so sure that's such a bad idea. I like working with other people's money, especially if you don't have to pay a lot of interest on it. So
Other ideas or thoughts? Today at lunch, I think I heard the province announce that they were going to spend another $1 billion on infrastructure that was supposed to be set aside for 21, but they're getting it into the system early. And so my thought was that, you know, there might be some money available, matching funds. We've already participated wholeheartedly with the government. Something like our Highway 876, where we were reminded today that although we put in 50% of that highway, they end up with that as an asset, basically 100%. But whatever the case, I agree with everything that's been said. I don't want our staff to have to go to a lot of work in case this never comes to be, but it'd be nice to know what you guys are thinking that might be able to be done. A lot of the conference calls that I've been in on with the Premier and the ministers, they talk about, you know, just a one-page sort of something about what you might have to do and how it could get done. And I'm sure there'll be more information coming on that, but those were sort of infrastructure type things that would put local people to work. So, Clarence.
Well, I don't think anybody has said anything that I don't agree with. And that's what I was driving at, these projects. But what I don't want to get into a position on is that if we have residents that can't pay their taxes for 2-3 years, that we're not in a position to make that as easy as possible. And I think being able to say there's no penalty, we know you're in a position that you are in, but we don't want to penalize them further from what, just because their taxes are due and that type of thing. And I think we're on the right track with what we did this morning, and we may have to continue it further. And I don't want to be in a position where we're not financially stable enough not to be able to do that. Those are the little things that I'm looking at. And I think it's very important that we're in that position. And, you know, we may not even have a choice. People, people say, well, what does it look like? What does the future look like? I keep telling them, look at the 30s. I think the economy, the economic plans, and I think our governments are smarter today than they were at that time, where there wasn't a lot of stimulus put out there, and it just drug on, and it didn't turn until that stimulus happened. And somehow you got to get those dollars flowing again. You got to get people working, and those are little things. And if we can help that happen, if we can help people stay off the food lines and that type of thing, we should be able to do that. And that's what I was getting at when I say be careful. Don't get in a position where you can't help.
Yeah, and I think that's extremely important. Wayne.
Another thing I want to stress is that we have a bunch of employees who depend on the county for their families and everything. So I want to make sure that we protect their jobs. We can't get in a financial situation where we maybe have to start laying people off. We have to make sure that doesn't happen.
So enough direction. Lane, I think I'm hearing that council would be interested in knowing if there are some things that might be able to happen down the road if we see that it would be a valuable thing to do with some money. But I, at the same time, don't want you guys to go too crazy in case that doesn't come about. But I think it'd be good to hear what sort of thoughts you have.
We'll take that as direction and go ahead, put our heads together and see if we can come up with a list of potential projects that could be considered and see which ones kind of rise to the top as priorities in the event that some stimulus funding does come available from the two senior levels of government. We'll bring that back and have further conversation with council on that then.
Thank you, Lane. Okay, we are at checks for payment, payment register. Any questions on that? If there are no questions, we need a motion to accept the payment register. Tracy moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Request for functions of council. I'm assuming that if you are having conference calls as part of your regular committees, you're putting that time down on your timesheets for sure. Utilities, NRSC report. Is there any questions about that item? So we need a motion to accept the municipal reports. Anne Marie moves.
So that includes both Mark and Cole's report.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. And we are at our post-agenda items, and some of them we haven't finished off with probably. COVID-19 update, was there more specifics on that?
I think we've covered most of the items that were on that list. I guess one of the things we have certainly kept the office open up to this point in time, unless things really take a turn for the worse or we get orders from the provincial government, we anticipate being able to continue leaving the office open for the public to attend. We are discouraging them from coming and encouraging them to take care of whatever they can over the phone or to issue payments through online options. If it gets to the point where we're needing to close, we'll certainly have a conversation with council and make sure that we're not taking steps that you would like us to avoid if at all possible, and that consideration is being given to whatever other options we need to keep open for the public that do need to be in touch with us. We've already talked about the playgrounds and campgrounds. Had a discussion about the online meeting solutions. Stuart has been involved in regular discussions with a number of other agencies about that relate to the operation of the Emergency Operations Center. Those conference calls are continuing. Steps are being taken by several agencies to make sure that the community is in a position to provide needs that might arise. One of the things that we have done with the minibus service, we have made arrangements with Safeways. They've actually put a program in place to accept grocery orders online. It's going to be limited to those that have specific needs. And we would be in a position to pick up those grocery orders and actually deliver them to the homes of residents throughout the county, as well as residents within Bassano, Rosemary, and Dutchess as well. So things are, I think, coming together fairly well as far as items that we need to be aware of and taking action on throughout the county in regards to this whole event that we're involved with. Is there questions that council has on any particular item? Oh, I guess one other matter that relates to this, Hamlet AGMs usually come up in the spring, and the feeling is that we should probably be encouraging those Hamlet associations to cancel them or to make arrangements to hold those meetings through an online option. I don't know, Kevin, is there anything else that relates to this particular item on the agenda that you wanted to speak to as well?
No, I think we've covered most of it. I guess just the process for the office. I know we're the only office that has been open for probably 2 or 3 weeks now in this corner. Everybody's been closed, but we're always been a bit unique. So half the staff are working from home, but
The outliers.
yeah, we've been. But I am worried about the payment structures, and when people come in for calcium and taxes, that, you know, that's where I think we're going to be pushing the envelope quite a bit. So just wanted to find out from council what process you want to use in order to do this, whether Molly can declare that or if we need to. Yeah, it's not an easy solution, but I think we've done exceptionally well. I think staff need kudos for, it's been a hectic time, let me tell you. It's been busy. A lot of people here till 6, 7 at night, all on COVID stuff. But yeah, that's what I'm most interested in. I think the rest of it we have talked about.
Question, Tracy and Wayne.
My question is along the lines of like, are we reaching out like as best as possible to people that are coming in, like that might come in to pay their taxes or their calcium bills? Just like I know on mine, like with the calcium, it says you can pay online and whatever, but I just think that's something like we really want to push out there that, you know, yes, our office is open, but these are measures please use. You know, I don't know if there's any more we can do to push that home, but I think that's really important to say, you know, we've made it easier for you to pay your bills online, just to really encourage that people don't come to the office.
You can still use Canada Post, can't you? I think. The mail still works, doesn't it? If checks still work. Wayne.
Just something, the EID had their election last Tuesday here, and what they had there, and I'm just saying we could maybe do this for people coming and pay their taxes. They had a guy outside that stopped people, explained everything to them. They had a sanitizer sitting there that people could use, and they only allowed one person in at a time. And I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe this is something we should look at if we have a big rush when in tax season, just so that we don't have a bunch of people sitting in the lobby there waiting to pay their taxes.
Well, I think our staff can probably figure that out if it, you know, suggestion, Wayne, if that's something like that is necessary.
Yeah, I think it's something that we could do, but you know, in order to stand outside or wait for the EID elections, I don't think there's that many people that vote per division. I'm not sure exactly the numbers, but we'll have a lot more people with calcium and taxes and what they've had. So, you know, I think encouraging people, educating them to pay through the banks and respect this is probably the best thing to do. But I know nobody else is open yet to do that. So it only takes one to come through the door and bingo, then you have it.
Well, Kevin, as our only employee, I think we can direct you to keep us in the know, and you've got to be the one to come to us with, because we're not there. So we're open to whatever it is that to keep our staff safe going forward. Clarence.
Have we got protective shields for our staff that are at the front desk?
Yeah, we have a small plexiglass one similar to what the Walmarts have, or Canadian Tire. It's people can reach around it, reach under it, but it's only about, I don't know, can't see how wide, but probably 3 feet wide. So, I mean, it's there, but it's still, I honestly don't believe that is a safe thing. I think it helps, but I'm not convinced that that's going to shield. If we had one fellow came in with a bad cold there a few weeks ago and coughed quite a bit, but he shouldn't have come in. But we're just worried that the volume may be an issue. So we'll try to direct the public to pay online and respect that, and hopefully they do. And if not, then we'll deal, if we're only dealing with a few, it's not a big deal. A lot of the ratepayers don't deal online. We have an older clientele at times that come in and they like to pay right away, and they've always done that, so it'll be tough for them.
Kevin, when those people come in, I guess that there'd be a variety of payments like credit cards and all those different things. Yeah. Is there signs on the door that say you shouldn't come in if you're not well?
Yes, we have put up right out in the front mezzanine area, a table with a disinfection station there and a big poster letting them know that we would rather they not come in and that they should be making payments through the online options. And there's a detailed sheet that's available right there on the table as to how they would go about making those payments online. There are still a few that are coming in and probably coming in for legitimate reasons, but yeah, we have taken measures to do what we can to discourage them from doing so, and at the same time still being open for business.
Tracy? Oh, yeah, Tracy, Clarence.
Out in that front entryway, like I know a lot of people like to pay by check. Can we set out like a drop box that they can, with the sign that says, bill drop box for calcium or tax bills or whatever? Then they don't have to come all the way in. Just an idea.
We can certainly do that. There already is a mail slot that's by the receiving door that people can stick envelopes through that mail slot, and we would be able to accept their payment that way. With the tax notices being generated here in another 2 weeks, what we'll do is we'll make sure that there's some detailed information in there about payment options and really strongly encourage them to use one of those options instead of making the trip to the office.
Clarence.
Can we also provide the service and say, we'll help you get online and how to do it online? Because I think there's a lot of people who really haven't got a clue how to do that. So, I mean, certainly we have lots of people that are expertise enough to give them a step-by-step process on how to do it. And it's not only safety for, it works both ways. It's safety for them and it's safety for us. So, I think, I'm just wondering if that's a possibility.
I like the suggestion, and we can certainly follow through with that. That's a very appropriate one.
Well, I think the banks all do it differently and how their setups are. I'm not sure how easy it would be to unless you could see their screens here, how easy it would be to try to guide them. I mean, we certainly would know a bank or two to be able to flow through it, but depending where they deal, I don't know, right? Because we could sure try.
Kelly?
Yeah, and a lot of our seniors don't even know what an email address is. So that's a population unto its own. I was wondering about a cell phone close the front doors to the public, but having a cell phone at the door. So they're didn't get the memo that the office is closed, and yet the front door opens and they have access to a phone that is picked up by staff at the front counter. Just a thought. because I'm assuming you're thinking about still working in the office. I've seen that work in seniors' places and things where you have to ring in. So just a thought.
Well, as I mentioned, I think we'll leave it to staff because to make a final decision, and we obviously your council will support you because we're not there on the front lines with you. Let people know that we, you know, maybe we can, maybe Ariana can make up a poster for us that we can post at our different places. Like, you know, I have 2 sets of mailboxes where people still go and get their mail, and we can say, you know, we really are discouraging people from going into the county office and to do these things. So if we can publicize it as well. And, you know, all those old people that don't pay online certainly still write checks. So they don't need to be at the office. Receipts can come through the mail just like their money can come through the mail. Anne-Marie.
Lower the number of people that might come in. Can we postpone this calcium payment for a few months? We still, but do they have to pay right away?
It's more, the cows, I guess it's more than just the payment. It's an actual application form. And in order to place their order, we need to receive that. The form includes specific details about where the calcium is to be applied. So we need to get that form submitted. Acceptance of the payment, that's not the issue. It's making sure that we receive the information to proceed with filling their order.
And to make sure it's accurate and everybody, both parties understand what is being asked for, Lane?
Correct, but even that though is information that we could probably take over the phone, work through the process with them. It's not that they would need to come into the office. So we should have systems in place that would allow us to do that without them coming in.
Yeah. Anyhow, is this a good enough discussion, Kevin and Lane? Yeah, am I safe to say, council, they are in charge? We will support their decision as it comes, as it changes if need be. I don't see anybody feeling negative about that, so.
No, and safety first.
Mm-hmm.
So one other thing, I see that Stuart had come in. Are you wanting, I can request that he come back into the meeting. He was just going to provide an update for council on Emergency Operations Center matters. Are you wanting to have him come back in? I
think that would be great because I know he's working with all of our mini munis as well as the county, and like I called it, he's been being baptized by fire these days. So welcome, Stuart. Thank you for dropping in.
Thank you very much, Regent Council, for having me this afternoon. I think I don't think there's a whole ton to report. I think we're all working very well together. I think I have a pretty good team together that we're making good, informed, proper decisions. We don't want to be knee-jerk and all that good stuff. And I do believe that the team I have there is good balance, good check and balance with everybody. The one thing I kind of wanted to talk on a little bit was I was actually somewhat happy to see a modeling report come up from the province. And with that, I'm working towards creating a model for the County of Newell to see what our potential could be for infection throughout the County of Newell. And, you know, according to Premier Tenney there, to his least case of 800,000 people infected from now till September, or the worst case to 1 million, you know, over the Alberta population, that works out to be somewhere between 18% to 23% of the population. So if we take that and break it down to just the County of Newell, it really to me, I got my numbers on my board there right now that I'm working on, but it looks like to the best case scenario, about 1,838 infections would happen within the county of Newell, to which 56 of them could possibly be hospitalized. And I took that hospitalization one off the model, off the province there right now, where about 3% seem to be hospitalized that get infected. From our EOC perspective, it's that total infected population that I am the most concerned about, and I think the group is too, because we got to wonder how many of them are part of that vulnerable sector or seniors that don't have the ability to get out and help and or get out and get the groceries and prescriptions, and should we be doing welfare checks with them? And with my meeting this morning, talking with Lynn Matheson, she's got some good county numbers on the amount of seniors that we have within the county of Newell. So I should be able to take those numbers and whittle down pretty much, where we could be and who we may or may not have to deal with. At the end of the day, we would hope that friends, family would be helping out with that and getting the proper essentials to these seniors or people with disabilities. So those are kind of the areas that we're working on right now, trying to do the right thing and the best thing for everybody. Lynn Matheson is working really, really well there on the social services end of things, and FCS and Desano as well. So and truly our other two communities are Dutchess and Rosemary. They put together good plans. They've got some good check and balances in place there from what they're reporting. So I'm very pleased and happy with that. So at the end of the day, what I'd like to report back on eventually here, and I definitely want to have my numbers, I guess, checked to make sure I'm not being overzealous. So Lane and I will go through them so that if I report back to you on numbers, I'm not being maybe overthinking the population, right? At the end of the day, I kind of want to know going forward, are we going to need help with that senior population and getting food to them and stuff like that if need be. So generally that's what we're at. We're working hard with the Hutterite colonies. They've been very, very receptive to us so far, which is great. We're having a little bit of more issues with the Low German communities. I think just simply because we don't have that same contact that we have with the Hutterite colonies, and because we're able to educate a little bit better. The things that we're finding is some of those Mexican Mennonite kids playing in the parks in Rosemary and Dutchess and stuff like that. And it's probably just an educational piece that needs to be done. So the CPOs and the RCMP have beefed up doing patrols and just educating the people a little bit better on that, about the social distancing and proper hygienes and all that good stuff. So at this time, I think that's all I have, unless you have some questions for me. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Stuart. Questions? Looks like everybody's fine with your report. Oh, Ellen has a question.
Yes, just to clarify, the sound was not quite coming through. Did you say 1,800 infections as a projection for the Newell County? Did you say that? And 56 hospitalized? Was that correct?
That was the number that I put together. And again, I'd like to more meet with Blaine on this just to make sure that I've got my numbers right. But basically what I did was I took a population of the county of Newell being around 10,000 people, so not including the city of Brooks. And out of those 10,000 people, if the province is saying 18% are going to be infected, I took that same 18% on the 10,000 and said that about 1,800 would be infected. So those are the numbers that I was using to come to it. And then of course, 3% of that 1,800 is 56, which would be hospitalized. So that's how I came about my numbers.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome.
Work. Stay healthy yourself.
I'm working hard at it.
Good. We'll hear from you in a couple weeks, probably.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good Easter weekend.
Yes, it's a long weekend and it's hard to believe because they're all the same now, all the days. Doesn't matter what day. It's a long weekend. Well, for some of us, anyhow.
All right.
Long weekends, probably, Stuart. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, was there anything else on post agenda? One thing that some of us had talked about was the need for RMA to have their resolutions session. And I was thinking about this last night. There's only 7 resolutions. I sort of looked through some of them. How are the rest of you feeling? I think sometimes they get tired of the County of Newell trying to be pushing our ideas on. So there's an RMA conference call in an hour, correct? So maybe it'll be mentioned then, but Brian and Anne-Marie.
Well, I guess I first of all, I think that if we're going to engage RMA, we have to applaud what they're doing, and they're doing their best to stay involved with the provincial government and some of the critical things that are going on.
Yeah.
And maybe bring it to their, like, is this really necessary? Is the resolutions the priority, or the work they're doing trying to get our residents and our economy safe and back on stream and dealing with this emergency situation? I believe that's more important, and they need to hear that. I don't know if it'll change anything. I think you're right, Molly, that some counties will probably think that their resolutions they put forward are more important than the pandemic, but I find that hard to believe. So I think that it'd be appropriate to articulate to them or write a letter or whatever that postponing the resolutions because there's only 7 till the fall is not the end of the world, to put it in a nutshell. So that's my thoughts anyways. And there'll probably be 3 or 4 emergent resolutions by that time that'll deal just with this, which, you know, and I think they're probably dealing with them already. So, I mean, I wouldn't know what they were. I won't cause to speculate, but I think truly, you know, they're doing their job. We're doing a good job trying to stay engaged, trying to keep us informed. And what more can you ask?
I totally agree. And if this is just a distraction that they feel they have to accomplish, it might be good for the reminder from those of us. There are some of us who don't think it's necessary. Can handle that. Anne-Marie?
My thoughts were similar. You know, the resolutions are there to tell the RMA what we want them to work on, and they're enough. They don't need anything else to work on. And so these resolutions can wait till November easily, if not till next March. Because yeah, and none of them is really important right now.
Well, I can try and get that message through the conference call today. I'll let them know that we really appreciate what they're doing, and perhaps they should continue to do that and not worry about a resolution session. Okay, information items. It's good to hear that our bus might be used for, I see you, Kelly, for deliveries if need be to seniors in our communities. Kelly?
So I wanted to thank you for the positive annual report. And a couple things I wanted to ask you, whether you needed a motion to approve it. And secondly, if you would videotape it and put it on our website for ratepayers to view.
I don't think we've ever had a motion to approve it. That I think we Yeah. And Kelly mentioned this to me and I said I didn't feel, although there are other community leaders who put things on websites and YouTube, I just, before I start doing stuff like this, I thought perhaps you might have some feelings about it. So thanks, Kelly. I appreciated Kelly's thinking it was something that people might want to hear, but it's up to you guys if you want me to do something like that. Wayne, Hubie?
I think that would be a good idea, Molly. And I appreciate that you actually asked us first. That is very nice because I know some leaders wouldn't, but that's, so I appreciate that. I think citizens of our county would appreciate having you in front of them, telling them what's going on for the last year. Thanks.
Hubie?
Wayne, I was gonna ask you about the minibus. Has there been any people requesting groceries to get delivered?
Anne has been in touch with all of them. There is a couple of them that are getting to the point where they will be needing groceries. She's definitely staying connected with them, and as soon as there is a need for us to be doing that, we certainly are in a position to look after those needs.
Do we need posters up at stores or post offices to let people know?
Well, she has been in touch with all of the regular riders for the service. I guess we could put some posters up and also distribute information through other sources in an attempt to reach out to others that haven't used the service in the past, but would like to consider the option of receiving groceries being delivered to them. That's an idea that we can certainly look into.
Okay, good, thanks.
Layton, you mentioned that Safeway is doing a packaging of, but only for special needs, sort of?
They're correct. They're wanting it for seniors, handicapped people that have specific transportation needs and or medical concerns. They're set up to handle, I think they're wanting no more than 20 orders a day that they would accept over the phone. They would have one of their clerks in the store fill those orders, run it through the till, and have it all ready so that the people just have to pull up to the curb. The boxes will be dropped in their trunk and off they go. For those that don't have access to transportation, that's where Anne would step in, and it would be the minibus that would be going over there to pick up their order and delivering it to their homes directly.
Sounds like a wonderful service. I hope people who don't truly need it start to be the top 19, and there's one person only that really needs it that's getting the service. Anne-Marie?
Lane, there would be a cost involved. Would it still be the $10 that people would pay?
Correct. It's $12 now is what the round trip charge has been for 2020, and they would still be required to cover that cost, which falls well short of what the full cost is for doing it, but we're still going to be charging that fee.
Yeah, I was thinking of a few seniors that have not used the bus, but might be interested in this service. So I'm going to tell them to get in touch with you or with Anne.
We will actually be posting some information. It starts on Wednesday of next week. So we'll be posting information on the county's website. There is a landing page for all COVID-related information, and that's where the details of this program are going to be posted. So yes, I would encourage you to reach out to residents in your respective areas that you think might be interested in using the service. We're certainly interested in getting information out there so that if there are additional people that haven't been using it in the past, become familiar with what the options are for the future. It would only be good for us to increase the ridership in the future.
Okay, Tracy.
So I kind of maybe missed this, but this delivery service would just be for seniors. Like that would, like we said, would normally ride or maybe don't use it, but could benefit. Like we're not opening this wide up to everybody in the county, are we? For the grocery delivery or deliveries?
Yeah, we're wanting to limit it to those that have legitimate needs that would prevent them from being able to attend and look after purchasing the groceries themselves. Plus, Safeways is only able to process so many orders a day, and we're not wanting to have just everybody jump on the bandwagon and start using the service that is too good to be true.
Thank you.
Wayne?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify my mind.
Sorry, Tracy. Wait.
Yeah, it's great service. I heard that, but that no frills. Now, this is a couple weeks ago. I heard this, that they were taking orders also, and if it was $100, they were given a 30% discount. So I'm not. Maybe that's something we should look in. And they were just doing that for anybody who just to keep people out of the store. And myself being a senior, I have several neighbors phone me about every other day telling me, do I need groceries? Do I need groceries? So I think the community is stepping up there and is really it's doing the job. So there you go.
Great, Wayne. They should be looking after you.
I know that Lynn has been in constant contact with all of the grocery stores in Brooks, encouraging them to put a program in place like this. Safeways is the first one that has stepped up with that option. I guess we weren't aware that No Frills had offered it. We know that in the larger centers, there's a number of grocery stores that actually have that service and have had it in place for quite a while. And it's not limited just to seniors. There are all kinds of people that are phoning in orders. They will pack it. They will have it ready for them to pick up. But the problem is that you got to drive to Medicine Hat to take advantage of that service, which is provided in the larger centers. It hasn't been provided locally until now, with Safeways being the first one. So Lynn with FCSS will continue to work with those grocery stores in an effort to encourage them all to put something similar in place.
Clarence?
Well, we're talking about seniors now, but if you look towards the future, and we'll be naive to think that we're not going to have people in our district that become positive. And the minute that you do, you're stranded, you're stuck in your house. And even if you're not very sick, it's 14 days. And I think there's going to be, and neighbors, like you say, Wayne, our rural communities are very different than some of the urban ones. Most of us know someone to call who would go to buy us groceries and be fine. But there's going to be some people that just need to have some provisions, and we're going to have some protocol that, you know, you don't exchange that one person to another. Is going to have to be dropped off in the porch or in the deck or whatever. But there's going to be a whole different dynamic when that actually does happen, when there are people that are locked in their houses and have to stay there. Hopefully not too many, but there will be some, and hopefully that can be handled. And I think that's also part of the kind of planning that's going ahead right now, that how do we handle that when it does happen? There will be a helpline that works through SPEC again. How well people will know that, I don't know. But there's a lot of people, a lot of very good people doing a lot of work trying to get ready. And we can just hope that it's not necessary, but I think it's good. It's good practice to get ready.
Yes. Thanks, Clarence. Okay. Anything else before we move in camera?
Hi, Molly, it's Todd.
Hello.
I may have forgot to ask you guys earlier when we were talking about Emerson and keeping it closed, about what our recommendation to the other community groups that operate campgrounds on county-owned land should be. So we have the Bow City Community Group, the Rolling Hills Ag Society, the Tilly Ballpark Association, and is that it? I think that might be it. The 3 or 4
Some
of them.
some of our community halls allow camping in their area if there's a function at the hall. So yeah.
EID Park has camping also.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Wayne. I was just thinking about that one too, the EID Historical Park.
Brian.
What's the logistics or legalities about county land that's on Ag Society operated? The Duchess Golf Course is the one that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and that's a good question too. I think Stuart's not on here, but we've talked about golf courses a little bit in the EOC meetings too, and trying to figure out what the best way to handle those is. And I don't think anything has really specifically been tied to golf courses. I just seen today that the Brooks Golf Course has outlined their plan. And I sent it to Stuart for his discussion with his group. So I guess we'll see what comes of that. The only benefit of a golf course, I guess, is you're outside and you can kind of stay apart. I'm not sure. But yeah, I suspect it would be our recommendation on if they were able to continue on through that lease, right?
Yeah, well, I guess that's why I was curious about liability wise, where that puts us, because it is county owned land. It's leased to the golf course, the Ag Society, for $1 a year, but I just wasn't sure about the logistics or legalities of it.
Yeah, and I've been watching the website to see about golf courses because that does intrigue me a little bit. I know, you know, Rolling Hills, Duchess, and Bizano all have wonderful courses, and they're like everything else in Canada. They make most of their money in the 4 months of the summer, so it's tough for sure. But I've been trying to watch to see when they come up with something for golf courses, but I haven't seen it.
I think the
Go ahead, Kevin.
I think the important thing is that we follow the Alberta Health Services policies on it, and the recommendations are one thing. Liabilities, you're not going to get caught on liability based on a recommendation. Where you may get caught is if you know about a policy that you're breaking and you're not following it. So I think campgrounds and golf courses right now, based on the separations of them, would be fine. It's a matter of the call of the day from the owner or the landlord whether or not they're going to open. I know that some provinces have closed golf courses. I think there's 3 of them in Alberta, and Alberta may follow that. But if they do, then I think we don't have any choice but to try to enforce that. But at this point in time, we need to follow what the site says and go with that. Changes weekly or daily, but
And I guess I'm perfectly fine with that. We're just going to draft up for Emerson what we talked about today and postponing the opening. So would that be kind of what we should just send to those groups, is what we did for our park, and hope they follow suit?
That sounds appropriate unless Alberta Health comes up with guidance. Like Aspen Crossing, for example, is on private property, and they're having campers this weekend, but very strictly run, and I couldn't believe it when I heard it. But anyhow, there are some things still happening because it's private property, but they have gone through an Alberta Health Service process to be allowed to do that, following many rules.
And I know Premier Kenny had seemed pretty optimistic with his speech that he thought end of May was sort of his date as the worst case. So I don't know if that means anything, but that may change by the time the long weekend hits too, right? I don't know whether the next couple of weeks are key for them in terms of their stats, but his address, I mean, it wasn't great news, but he did throw out the end of May as the date when he thinks Alberta will be on the way down.
Which won't mean it's over.
No.
So, yeah,
No.
you know what, I just think there's no good getting people excited about being able to do things that they probably aren't going to be able to do. I like the concept of, until further notice, Emerson isn't open, and I don't see these other communities. Well, I don't know. What do you guys think that live in the communities? Kelly, sorry, I've been ignoring you. Clarence.
On purpose?
No. No, definitely not.
So I think a little bit differently, Kevin. I think we need to support these hamlets and these volunteer organizations in making the right decision. I mean, Todd's idea of gently saying, well, this is what we're doing. If it's on county land, it ultimately falls to us as decision makers. So I really I'm a little bit hesitant to be so soft on this topic.
Yeah, I didn't mean to come across as soft. All I was trying to do was set out the position of liability. And so, I mean, certainly I think the county's able to shut down anything that it owns. Whatever terms are in your lease, you may be subject to that, if there are financial obligations or whatever. But yeah, so my point was only about what the policy standard is and where we could be liable.
So could we not make a statement as a council recommending certain actions and see how that plays out? I just, I think we need to show some leadership in this direction.
Yeah, most certainly you can. You can make, any recommendations that you want relative to, to our jurisdiction for sure.
Lionel?
If we're going to show leadership and make decisions, I think they should be aired on the side of caution. Because in some of the other countries, like the US, for instance, that didn't take the warnings seriously at the start, they get into huge problems because of it. I don't think this is that big a sacrifice that people can't not use that service at this particular time. Where this thing's going to go in Brooks yet. But we're definitely going to have problems with it at some point. And it could get very serious if it got into somewhere like JBS. Become a huge problem.
So Todd, your question to us was, what should we do about those places, right? Yeah. And you haven't heard anything really definitive from us.
Well, nothing that would say send them something to tell them they can't have any campers until further notice, or nothing to tell them, do whatever you want. But it's
and there's nothing from Alberta Health Services at this point that you've found, except for the whole concept of congregations can't be more than, what are we at now?
15.
15.
And it does, there's a small portion that says recreation and entertainment, but it doesn't specifically outline campgrounds or
Yeah.
golf courses.
I think we should err on the side of caution and highly recommend that they just leave it alone for now. Personally, Tracy.
Yeah, my comment was along that line, like, we do have with the playground closures, right, that it's not recommended or that playgrounds are to be closed. Well, every campground has a playground. And if you allow camping and maybe you can use your social distancing between sites, they're gonna, be using the playgrounds. And I just think it's best to just say no for now until, we carry on. Keep everybody safe, because if you give people an inch, they take a mile sometimes, right? And if we want to try to help keep things safe, I think we should be a little more verbal on it.
Hubie?
Todd, I noticed on the playground here in Tilly, you have a sign up there to keep people out. Have we got those at all the campgrounds too?
No, we don't. Just the playground structures right now, Hubie.
Ellen?
And we'll put them up at the campgrounds too.
Yeah, we certainly can put up some sort of notification for people. Absolutely.
Good idea, Ellen?
Yeah, and I'm wondering about the logistics too of who is going to clean the public washrooms, the showering, the shower stalls, and that type of thing, right? Because if you have it open, you very well have to have those facilities open as well, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if that's part of the service that you're offering at a campground, yeah, you would think so. That's how we were starting to gear up, Ellen, we were hoping that Emerson was still going to be open. We have wonderful big sites that people can all, like you say, practice social distance at. And we were just going to do a little bit more cleaning and sanitizing and stuff like that. But that's not really the way we had to end up going. So.
Wayne?
I agree with what you said, Molly. I think we should highly recommend, strongly recommend that we keep these campsites and everything closed. Right now, we don't have anything in the county of Newell in our area. Let's try real hard to keep it that way. So let's keep it closed.
Some of the best part about camping is getting together around a campfire. It might be hard to keep people away from that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Todd. You allow camping, you allow social distancing to go by the way. Kelly?
So I'm a little bit anxious about this. I would like to make a motion that we instruct our staff to send out notices to County of Newell lands until the pandemic is cleared by the provincial and federal health ministers. They be closed to service. We're doing our due diligence, whether the operators follow it or not. I guess will remain to be seen.
So Kelly, your motion was to instruct staff until the pandemic is sort of cleared by the province that those campsites be closed. Is that what you said? All right, discussion on that. Brian?
I think when you repeated it, you said campsites. People have cut out once in a while, so maybe I missed it. But Kelly, did you mean like golf courses and anything that's county land related?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure I was clear on what I was voting for.
That's what I think Kelly said, right? Kelly, County of Newell Lands, I think were your words.
I think Kelly's disconnected. or-
Kelly looks, yeah, she looks like she's paused or something.
She's
Lost
frozen.
her.
And if she can still hear us, I'm wondering if we should change it to until further notice, because then we would be in charge. If that's okay with you, Kelly.
She's frozen. Oh, she's gonna try to come back. Would you guys like until further notice if Kelly agrees to that? Yeah, Brian, yeah, we could go with that.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Would that work, Todd?
That is clear direction, yeah.
So does the mover have to be present? Lionel,
Okay, all county lands, but does that include the golf course or just camping on the golf course? Lands. Do we shut down the golf course?
well, I think Brian asked that question for that reason, was it not? Brian, or no?
Lane is waving.
Lane,
So during these EOC discussions that Stuart has been hosting, questions were raised about golf courses and what is happening elsewhere. I'd have to go back to the meeting notes to see who it was that said, but what other golf courses are doing. They are allowing golfers to book tee times, but there has to be longer wait times between starts. And they're limiting the number of golfers. I think that there's only 2 that can go as a group, so that you don't get the larger group that's going all the way around the course together, and that there's plenty of social distance being maintained. And then, of course, their kitchen facilities, clubhouse kitchens are not open to the public. So that's our understanding as to what's happening with other golf courses elsewhere.
Brian,
I got the email from the Brooks Golf Course yesterday, and I won't read it. I'll just hit the highlights. Lane, you're mostly correct. They are offering, normally the tee times are about 8 minutes apart. They're saying 12 minutes. They don't let anybody ride together unless they showed up in the vehicle together. So I don't know how you police that. They don't let anybody in, more than one person in the clubhouse at the same at a time. So one and done. You have to book your tee times ahead of time. You can't just show up and go. They do allow foursomes out there, but you have to practice social distancing. You're not allowed to touch the flag when you're putting. The flagpole is off limits. You can't touch it. And they've put foam. They're putting foam in the cups so that your ball, I don't know, I don't understand this completely, but I don't think your ball is going to go to the bottom of the cup when you putt. It'll just hit the cup, and then you basically have to pick it up. So multiple people aren't reaching into the same hole. That's my impression. But other than that, they're basically saying practice your common sense on the course. So we're basically leaving it up to the individual, or they are basically leaving it up to the individual to police themselves for the most part. And ultimately that's their decision. I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but that's what their directives are.
Kelly can hear us. He sent me a message.
so then, Brian, you're and Clarence Rolling Hills is a golf course also, right? Those are.
Well, I chatted with Leroy last year as the chair of the board and golf course about a week ago. They didn't know what they were doing. It sounded like they were leaning to not open at all. They didn't, the kitchen, of course, had to be closed. They were worried that, how can you really pay for the upkeep of the course if you're only going to get 2 or 3 people a day. And I think the way they were leaning was it's not going to be open. They're going to maintain the greens so they don't lose them. That's kind of the message I got. As far as camping, you know, we're told to stay home. That's what Alberta Health says. And I struggle even going to my second home. So I think when you say you can open these things and where public are going to be, I think you're treading on some pretty iffy ground in today's circumstances. I have no problem saying we recommend that these things are closed.
Brian, are you okay with that?
I wouldn't even use the word recommend. I would say that the county's policy is going to be that we are closed until further notice. And if you defy it, you're basically taking all the liability upon yourself. I mean, I don't know what the Duchess Golf Course is going to do. They could very well want to open. I don't know, but I think they have to be aware that county is not going to, if somebody gets sick and heaven forbid dies and it can be proved back to something like that. We all know litigation, and we've all heard these bad cases where they're going to paint everybody that's connected to it. And unfortunately, if it's on county land, that puts us in that thing. So I think, you know, they have the keys to the gate, but we have the keys to the property. And I think that if they get the strong message from us that says we are closing all our campgrounds and we recommend on county land that you follow the same thing, not recommend, that we're directing you to do it, I think that bears a lot of weight. So I agree with you, Clarence. I think that in these times we just have to err on that side, and hopefully by July they can open. I mean, that's my best case scenario, is that July 1st we can go out and golf.
Wayne?
I agree with all of you, and I agree that we got to be hard on this, but I know a lot of them are looking at this as a big financial hit to them. We can talk later about maybe supporting them a little bit down the road, but right now we got to make sure they're closed, because we cannot take chances with people's lives. These have to be closed.
So it's within our power then to make a motion where we say we direct rather than recommend, Kevin?
Well, I think, again, I think we have to follow what our lease agreements say, so I don't have them in front of me. If we're declaring a state of emergency, then we have powers to close anybody down. So, you know, to answer that right now, unless Lane knows what those agreements say, I couldn't say for sure if there's a clause in there that we'd have to follow or not. We can look at it.
Is recommend good enough for now? Or?
Well, it recommend is fine. It's just that's different than strongly, or that we expect you to close, right? So let us look into those agreements. We got the intent of what you want.
Okay.
If we don't see anything in there, then we'll draft that. We expect you to close and deal with the financial implications later.
Okay, and you can do that with direction, Kevin?
I think the motion.
Kelly's got a motion on the floor, though.
I think the motion would be best.
Okay, so then I guess my question is are we saying recommend or direct? You want direct? Kelly? Let's go with direct then, Kevin. Is that's good?
Yeah, Kelly just sent a message. She says, I vote in favor.
She'll be fine with. So we'll go with the, her word was instruct, actually.
But Kevin.
No, she says
he doesn't
direct.
know if we have that power.
Correct?
Do we have-
Anne Marie says that,
Sorry, Kelly just wrote direct.
okay, Clarence?
Kevin just told us he's not sure what our agreements, whether that really allows us to do that. Without going into a state of emergency.
I would have to read them unless Lane or Todd knows what they say. I'm sure that there's probably nothing in them that says one way or the other. But, you know, we'll have to look at them for sure. And if we can't send a letter out to direct them, then we'll let you know by email right away.
Okay.
Okay, so you don't need a motion right now then?
Well, I think if you want it to go out, we should have the motion in place, right? We have that direction, but if we find something in the agreements that doesn't allow us to send that out, then we'll get a hold of you right away. Tomorrow.
Okay. So the intent of the motion is to tell everybody that to shut down until further notice, basically, correct? I don't know, I'm a little bit lost as to how we do this, but
Okay,
to
Kelly
direct staff to look into it.
Kelly just wrote, instruct staff to deal with camp properties to their abilities. Close down until further notice. Now, Kelly, is that a new motion or are you withdrawing your motion? Withdraw. She's withdrawing the motion. Do you get the same messages, Kevin?
Everybody can get them. They just have to turn their chat on.
Yeah. On the top right, there's a chat.
So I think, Kevin, could you just tell us what should be in this motion and we'll go with that?
I think what we heard is that you're directing administration to provide notice to close down all facilities on county-owned land, subject to the agreements that are in place.
I think that's what Kelly wanted to say. Any further discussion on that? All in favor, can Kelly indicate if she is, because this is her motion, basically.
She did write yes.
Perfect. Phew. We got through that. Sorry, everybody, for my lack of decision-making, leadership, whatever, but this is the only time this has got a little bit weird.